There's a 46-year-old man in Los Angeles who wakes up at 5 a.m. every single morning without an alarm. Not because he's disciplined in the way your high school football coach was disciplined. Not because he has early meetings or a long commute, but because his entire body has been engineered, optimized, and monitored to the point where waking up at 5 a.m. is simply what his biology does now. And his name is Brian Johnson. And before you write him off as some eccentric millionaire doing weird things with his money, you should know that he sold his company Braintree to PayPal for $800 million in 2013, which means he is not confused about how the world works. He is not naive. He is not uneducated. He is one of the sharpest business minds of his generation. And he has decided to point every single dollar and every single hour of his remaining life at one specific problem, the problem of dying. Because Brian Johnson does not want to die, and not in the casual way that most of us don't want to die, not in the I try to eat healthy and go to the gym sometimes kind of way, but in the obsessive, scientific, all-consuming, $2 million per year kind of way. And every morning he wakes up at 5 a.m. and takes 111 pills before noon. Not supplements from a gas station rack, but a precise, constantly adjusted stack of compounds designed by a team of doctors who monitor every measurable thing happening inside his body: his inflammation markers, his testosterone levels, his glucose response, his sleep cycles, his cardiovascular efficiency, his skin thickness, his eye pressure, his bone density. All of it, tracked, logged, analyzed, and fed into a system called Project Blueprint, which is essentially Brian Johnson's attempt to reverse engineer the aging process from the inside out. And what makes this more than just a rich guy doing weird things is that it's working, or at least the measurements say it's working. His biological age, according to multiple independent tests, is years younger than his chronological age. His cardiovascular fitness scores in the top percentile for men half his age. His inflammation levels are lower than most 25-year-olds. His sleep scores are almost robotically perfect night after night. And the mainstream reaction to all of this is mostly mockery. People see the photos of him shirtless with the perfect body and the blank expression, and they make jokes. They call him creepy. They call him a vampire. They posted endless memes when it came out that he had infused his teenage son's blood plasma into his own veins, looking for regenerative proteins. And yes, that sounds insane. That sounds like a movie villain's origin story. But here is the thing that the people making jokes are missing. Here is the thing that should make you put your phone down for a second. Every single medical advancement that we now consider completely normal, vaccines, chemotherapy, organ transplants, IVF, all of it looked absolutely insane to the average person before it became standard practice. The first surgeon to suggest washing hands before operating was laughed out of rooms and died in a mental institution. And the people laughing at Brian Johnson in 2024 may be the same people whose grandchildren receive longevity treatments in 2045 that trace their origins directly back to Project Blueprint. And Silicon Valley knows this, which is why the mockery you see on Twitter is only half the story. Because behind closed doors, in the offices and group chats and private dinners of the most powerful technologists in the world, Brian Johnson is not a punchline, he is a pioneer. And the obsession with longevity in Silicon Valley runs so deep and so wide that it has quietly become the defining mission of an entire generation of the wealthiest and most influential people on Earth. Jeff Bezos has poured hundreds of millions into a company called Altos Labs, whose entire purpose is cellular reprogramming, essentially teaching old cells to behave like young cells, turning back the biological clock at the cellular level. And the scientists they've recruited to do this work are not fringe researchers. They are Nobel Prize winners, people who have spent decades at the most respected institutions in the world and have now been offered resources so large they couldn't say no. And Peter Thiel, the PayPal co-founder and one of the most contrarian thinkers in technology, has been funding anti-aging research for years and has spoken publicly about his interest in parabiosis, which is the practice of connecting the circulatory systems of young and old organisms. And yes, that is where the blood transfusion thing comes from. It's not just Brian Johnson being dramatic. It's a legitimate area of scientific research that has shown real results in animal models. And Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, the man currently building what many believe will be the most transformative technology in human history, has invested $180 million into a longevity company called Retro Biosciences, whose goal is to add 10 healthy years to the average human lifespan. And when you zoom out and look at all of this together, Bezos, Thiel, Altman, Johnson, and dozens of others all pointing enormous resources at the same problem at the same time, it stops looking like a collection of individual eccentricities and starts looking like a coordinated bet, a belief held by the people with the most information and the most to lose that the science of aging is about to break open in a way that changes everything. And to understand why they believe this, you have to understand what scientists have actually learned about aging in the last 2 decades. Because the popular conception of aging, the idea that it's just natural wear and tear, that cells get old and break down the way a car rusts, that there's nothing to be done except accept it gracefully, that conception is being dismantled in real time in laboratories around the world. In 2006, a Japanese scientist named Shinya Yamanaka discovered that you could take a fully mature adult cell, a cell that had already committed to being a skin cell, or a liver cell, or a heart cell, and by introducing 4 specific proteins, you could reprogram it back to a pluripotent stem cell state, essentially making it young again. And that discovery won him the Nobel Prize, and cracked open a door that scientists are now trying to walk through at scale. Because if you can reprogram a single cell back to a young state, the question becomes whether you can do that to enough cells in a living organism to reverse measurable aging. And the answer in animals so far is that yes. Under the right conditions, you can. Researchers have restored vision in old blind mice by reprogramming the cells in their eyes. They've reversed aging markers in muscle tissue, in kidney function, in brain cells, and the results are consistent enough across enough labs that the scientific conversation has shifted. It's no longer really a question of whether cellular reprogramming can reverse aging. It's a question of how to do it safely and at scale in humans. And that question is exactly what Altos Labs and Retro Biosciences and a dozen other Silicon Valley-funded companies are racing to answer. And meanwhile, Brian Johnson is living his life as a human data point, every morning waking up at 5 a.m. and submitting his body to another round of measurement and adjustment and optimization, eating his carefully calibrated meals, taking his 111 pills, going to bed at 8:30 p.m. every single night. No exceptions, no late nights, no alcohol at celebrations, no skipping the protocol because he's tired or busy or it's his birthday. And people ask him if this is living. They ask him if a life this controlled and optimized is actually worth living. And he says something that I think is more profound than it sounds on the surface. He says he used to make decisions with his body based on what felt good in the moment. And those decisions were slowly killing him. High stress, poor sleep, bad food, the usual American professional lifestyle. And he decided to hand control of those decisions to data instead of feelings, to let the measurements drive the behavior rather than the cravings. And the result is a body that functions better at 46 than it did at 30. And maybe you disagree with his choices. Maybe you think a life without wine and late dinners and sleeping in on Sundays isn't worth the extra years, and that's a completely legitimate position to hold. But it's worth noticing that the framing of that argument, the idea that optimizing your health means sacrificing your enjoyment of life, is itself a story we've been told by a culture that profits from us being unhealthy. The food industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the healthcare system, none of them make money from you being well. They make money from you being sick and treating the symptoms. And Silicon Valley, for all its flaws, is at least asking a different question. Instead of, how do we treat disease, they're asking, how do we prevent aging entirely? And the money flowing into that question is unlike anything the scientific community has ever seen, because for most of human history, longevity research was underfunded and undersupported because aging was considered inevitable. You don't fund research into stopping the sun from rising. You just build better sunscreen. But if you remove the assumption of inevitability, if you say aging is not a law of physics, but a biological process that can potentially be understood and modified, then suddenly you have the most important research problem in human history, because every other problem we care about, poverty, education, mental health, productivity, all of it is downstream of how long and how well humans can live. And the people who have built companies that changed how we communicate and shop and travel and find information have looked at this problem and decided it's the next frontier. And whether they're right or wrong, the resources they're deploying are going to generate an enormous amount of scientific knowledge regardless. Some of it will be dead ends. Some of the companies will fail. Some of the treatments will not pan out in humans the way they did in mice, but some of it will work. And the question that should be sitting in the back of your mind right now is what happens to society if it does work? What happens when the first generation of humans has access to treatments that meaningfully slow or reverse biological aging? Because it will not be available to everyone immediately. It never is. Every medical advancement starts expensive and exclusive and becomes cheaper and more accessible over time. But in the gap between expensive and accessible, there will be a generation of wealthy people who are biologically 40 at a chronological age of 80. And the social, economic, and political implications of that are almost impossible to fully imagine. What does retirement mean when people are healthy and sharp at 100? What does the workforce look like?